Hello! Back with another book tag! Yeah, I know you love them. I obviously do. This one I got from Bookbound Weirdo, and I have tagged myself, which, too bad. That's what I'm doing. And Sir Chong's here, so we're going to both do it because it's a nice short one. So he said, oh, it's short? Fine, I'll do that one. All right, so number one is, so this is the evolution of a reader. Number one, what you read. How has your taste in books evolved? So for me, I don't even think it actually has evolved that much, because I was thinking about, like, I really like dark fiction. I like things that are kind of dreary and depressing. But I was thinking about it, and even, like, as a kid, I mean, Little House wasn't dark, but, you know, I liked Bunnicula. I mean, I was, like, liking horror when it was kids' horror. And then I loved mystery. I mean, I used to read the Hardy Boys and the Nancy Drew books. And then as soon as I graduated to sort of the upstairs in our library, which was the adult library, the first thing I went for was, like, Mary Higgins Clark and then V.C. Andrews and Stephen King. So, I mean, while I did take a foray into romance a bit because Danielle Steele was popular at the time, she was kind of the exception to the rule. I mean, I was mostly reading Stephen King, V.C. Andrews, like I said, a lot of the, like, 90s, Fear Street, Point Horror, Christopher Pike. I've always really liked horror and thrillers and mysteries. And then I liked classics. Like, even when the books I read in school, I enjoyed. So, and I would read classics for fun. And so I don't know that my taste has really evolved. I like literary fiction. I like mysteries. I like thrillers. I probably like romance less, but that's about it. I think I've always been into, like, dark and sort of twisted. I've also really always liked, like, sort of complex characters that no one else seems to like. So.
Okay. Well, as a wee caterpillar, I was very much into adventure and fantasy when I was a young lad. Anything where, like, there was a hero doing stuff. Could be a guy, like, running through trees, trying to find a path through. Could be a dude being like, I'm going to punch that dragon in the face. Anything adventure or fantasy, I really liked when I was little, and I didn't really give a crap how short or long or badly written it was. Then I turned into a pupa, and at that point, I was really heavily, I would say, into horror. I had a big horror phase. I would pretty much only read horror novels. Again, I could deal with kind of a crappier written one if the story was good. And then eventually I turned into a beautiful butterfly. And now I'm cranky as hell and I hate everything. I like to read just about any genre. I'd say I'm way more into sort of like classic and literary fiction to go with sort of horror and fantasy now. But my big problem is if it's not written well, it's really hard for me to not hate it. Even if the story is good. If it's poorly written, no.
All right. And to kind of add to that, like...
Don't add to me.
Well, fine. But, like, for me, like, I do need a book to be relatively well written. I'm nowhere near as difficult as he is. He is, like, he gets so hung up on, like, the most minor things.
They're not minor to me. Also, you were never even a pupa in your response, so how can you even talk?
You liked Harry Potter, and those aren't that well written. You like Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah, but I complain about them a lot.
Okay. But, yeah, like, I mean, it has to be...
Those aren't totally inept. They just have, like, some flaws that are super annoying.
Right. Like, but if it's, like, bad, I'm going to notice. All right, so number 2, how you read. Has the format of your reading changed much? Yes, because there were no phones and... Kindles and iPads and ebooks when I was a kid. So, I mean, I love books. I love physical books. I love holding a book. I love the smell of books. I really like old beat up books. That being said, I don't have a lot of room for all the books and I keep buying them even though I have no room for them. So it's like just boxes that I'm like, where am I going to put these books? So I definitely need to get rid of some books. So, yeah, the format has definitely changed because I've been trying to read way more on, I say my Kindle, but I have a Kindle, but I never charge it because I'm super lazy. And so I end up, like, just reading on the Kindle app on my phone. which the Kindle is nice and big and my phone is not, but well, I guess I don't really care. But yeah, so the format of my reading has certainly changed because technology has evolved and now I have access to 1 billion books in this tiny phone.
This is not going to be a short video if you write a short novel every time you have a response. Anyway, I also am an old person, so there were no phones, Kindles when I was a wee lad. I basically didn't have any preference. Originally, I'd be like, how can I get a hold of a book? So if I had a book, I would read that book. I wouldn't care. So for example, there's one friend that I borrowed all of his books from, so I just, whatever he had, I would just borrow that book from him. I didn't care. Now, I do read some stuff on Kindle. I don't read on my phone. Too small. It annoys me. I will read on Kindle sometimes, but I'd rather read an actual book, and I prefer hardcovers. I much enjoy reading a hardcover book as opposed to anything else, but I'll read just about any format.
Yeah, when it comes to physical books, I actually prefer, paperback. I think trade paperback is my favorite. I like that. I like the bigger size, but I don't like the pointy edges of the hardcovers.
Pointy edges?
Yeah, they're pointy.
Don't stick them in your eye.
It's not as easy to curl up in bed with it because you end up getting stabbed in something. And my cat loves hardcover books. He just loves to shove his face into the point. I'm like, what are you doing? Yeah, he does not mind the pointy edges. All right, so number 3. How much you read? Do you read more or less than previously? This is actually a 3-part question, so it's technically it's one question.
Oh no.
But we'll just answer each part. So, do you read more or less than previously? So this obviously varies, but I would say in the last year, I'm back to reading a ton. I used to read tons and tons of books, and then I took a while where I would kind of only read a few things a year, and then I was back.
That furniture game for years.
It was after that, and then I would read. Then I started reading a ton again, and then so I kind of have these phases, and then at some point last summer, Sir Chunk was just reading a book, and I was like, you know what? I haven't really read too many books lately. Look at him reading all these books. I need to go back to reading books. And then I was like, I'm gonna get my library card for the ebooks. And then all of a sudden I was just like, I have all the books now. I must read them all. And now I'm reading a book a day, a book every 2 days or so. So yeah, but it's not really an evolution. I think it's just kind of I go through phases where I read a ton and then I don't. So.
I'm a very streaky reader. I'll go stretches where I read just about nothing, and then I'll go stretches where I read 3, 4, 5 books a week. But generally it's because during the summer, I have a lot more free time. During the school year, I'm usually reading for school, so I do very little reading for myself during the school year. So I have a book that will last for months, you know what I mean? And I'll just chip away at it for months. I'm like, hey, I read 2 books in the last 6 months. Fantastic. And then around summertime, I read a lot more. So that's just how it goes.
When do you read? All right, so
When I'm awake.
I like to read before bed, for sure. But I have a fairly flexible work schedule. So, obviously there's days where I don't have time during the workday to do any reading. But I do have, sometimes I'll have, an hour free. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to read for a little while. And then lately I've been having this issue where for no apparent reason, if I go to bed at 9 p.m. or if I go to bed at 3 a.m., I wake up at 4 in the morning for no reason. And then sometimes if I force myself, I can get back to sleep for a few hours. But sometimes I can't. And so I've gotten this new 4 to 8 a.m. window of I guess I'm going to read because I'm awake. So, and then in terms of time of year, yeah, I probably read more in the summer just because I see Sir Chunk reading more. But my favorite time to read is in the winter because I'm a big fan of cozy. I like blankets, I like socks, I like having the radiator on. I like when it's snowing and I don't have to go anywhere. I never have to go anywhere. And then I like having a book in those kind of moments. Summer's nice though because it's light longer, so if we lose power for a storm or anything, you can still read. In the winter, if you lose power, you're like, well, I guess that's it. I'm not reading. All right.
Yeah, as I said, I mostly read in the summertime because I have time. Ideally, though, I think reading at night in the fall is my favorite time to read. I don't always necessarily get that much time to read then at that time of year, but that's the ideal time for me to read. Fall, nighttime, spooky.
All right, and how often you read changed? We kind of both addressed this already, so.
So no need to continue.
Yeah. All right, so number 4 is how has Booktube changed you as a reader? So we've only really been on Booktube for like a month or a little over a month, so I can't really like talk too much about it. But I will say that like I kind of have this like accountability, I feel like. Not that anyone cares if I'm like, this is my TBR for the month. These are the books I'm going to read. Or I like post, now I have like more people on Goodreads so if I say I'm reading something, I have this like feeling of like, oh, I need to finish this book because I said I was going to read it. And like, again, not that anyone cares at all, like there's no punishment, but I personally feel this obligation. And like in July, I'm going to be taking part in a readathon, and there's 16 prompts, and I will complete all 16 because like I feel like this obligation to like my team to like get as many points as humanly possible. So I think those kind of things are good, and I think that's why challenges and stuff are fun. You know, like the Goodreads challenge, like I just upped mine from 100 to 150 because I'm at 71 books. So like having like that goal tends to make me want to read more. It's like nonsense, motivation, but even though there's not really a penalty for not doing it, it seems to make me feel like, oh, I got to do this. So not in a bad way, in a positive, fun way.
I would say I've had no impact of Booktube. I guess because sometimes now I have to chat and say stuff to a microphone like I am right now. That's really the only impact Booktube has had on my life. Thank you for watching.
All right. Well, so that's it. So what about you? How have you evolved as a reader? Tell us more. And we'll be back soon. We're going to try to do some more comic stuff. We have this big stack of like comics that we're like, oh, we're going to talk about comics. But yeah, we've been reading too much. We have all these other things. We were like, oh, we should totally do a thing on like video games, or we should. Sir Chung's been working on his favorite 100 movies list. But then we just are like, oh, well, let's read.
180 songs.
Oh, maybe he's going to do his favorite 80s songs.
That'll take 8 years to do. So.
Yeah, so we are going to cover other things, but yeah, we do definitely seem to be focusing a lot more on books, which is good because like we were both English majors. That's our thing. So, yeah. So we'll see you around soon and with more book stuff and probably some other random nonsense. Okay, bye.